Hey, happy Sunday to you. So I've been planning this video for a little while, and I've had lots of discussions over the last year with lots of women and fathers who are parents and those who have a little bit of experience either watching closely other families going through pregnancy and laboring a child and making babies and those who have actually been through it. And being that I'm a kinesiologist by trade, I've definitely had a lot of discussions about exercise specifically around the whole topic of pregnancy. And so, of course, the first thing is to be very sensitive that everybody is incredibly different in the experience that they have. So even the fittest, most trained athletes can go into pregnancy and find that all of a sudden their bodies just do not allow them to exercise. And so that is most definitely a reality for some people, which has to be acknowledged and fully respected, that everyone truly has their own circumstances that come up. And so you need to either step back away from exercise entirely, maybe shift to more mindful work, meditation, breath work, if you choose to, or you really modify a lot and do what you can, right? So a whole host of different things can happen in pregnancy. So my purpose is here today, and my hope today is just to share about my experience personally and what I personally found, what my mindset was, and what I found my physical results were from consistent and frequent exercise. And I hope that that brings some value to your experience, whether you are trying to get pregnant or thinking about getting pregnant in the future, whether you're pregnant right now, whether you are in, recent postpartum, or whether or not your babies are all grown, wherever you're at. I hope to just share my story and inspire some women to, exercise in general, but especially in pregnancy, as this is obviously specifically about pregnancy. So I tend to ramble. If you followed my page for a while, or if you know me at all, you know that I can kind of get excited and get off track and talk about something related for a little longer than necessary. So you'll notice that I'm over here sort of checking the notes that I have just so that I can stay on track. So gotta be honest about that. So again, this whole video is about how exercise and why exercise helped me through my pregnancy, and why I really, really am going to devote a huge amount of my career moving forward to encouraging women in pregnancy and before pregnancy, when preparing for pregnancy, and in postpartum, to be as active as you personally can be, because the results and the benefit are just absolutely incredible. So first of all, why exercise helped me was it really helped me to set a mentality. So my goal was to exercise as frequently and consistently as possible. So the recommendations for exercise are somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes, 5 times a week, up to daily. So that's the recommendation specifically for pregnant women. And the only specification that they really have is they want to make sure, or they want to recommend that you make sure that when you're exercising, you're not exercising to the intensity where you can't hold a conversation. That's too much, that the body temperature is going up too high at that point. And the other thing they recommend is just not to lift heavy enough weights, which is also very interesting because I follow a woman who is a professional CrossFit athlete, and she basically lifted and did, very, very close to what she was doing almost through her entire pregnancy. So again, more respect and speaking to the very real reality that everybody is completely different. So as a pregnant person going through this journey, you really, really have to honor your body the whole way through. So for me, I really looked at labor as if I was training for a marathon. So of course you have your due date. And so my due date was really what I was training for. I was going to perform the hardest physical endurance event, strength endurance event of my life on that day. And I was really training and thinking about it as that was my plan. That's what I structured all of this exercise around. So if you've ever trained for a marathon before, or a 5K, or a specific performance goal, and you've been so incredibly committed that almost nothing would take you away from one training session to prepare your body for that event, this is the way that I looked at it. So for me, training my body with the specific intention to focus on performance, rather than fear. So that was a huge key for me mentally. So I was very, very afraid to labor, Holly. Very, very afraid. And when I would think about the pain of labor and the unexpected and the unknown and cross-reference that with things that were in my head based on stories I had heard from other women's experiences, my older sister had 3 children before I had 1. And so I was pretty close to the experience of labor and many stories about it. And I was really scared because I knew that it was either going to be a faster labor like my mother had with me, or it was going to be a really, really long drawn out labor like my older sister had experienced in her labors. And so whenever I thought about laboring her, it was almost like, have you ever had a traumatic event that just kind of pops into your head during the day and you just kind of go, ooh, you get like this shiver and it's like, oh my God, like you have to kind of control and get yourself out of that trauma so that you can just carry on with your life. So whenever I thought about laboring her, I was very scared. And so what I really shifted my focus on and focused strategically on, especially in my meditations during this time, was you were an athlete performing, and fear, similar to anxiety and excitement, I kind of paired or coupled in my fear with anxiety and excitement. And I was trying to say, the fear is good. It means that you care a lot and that you're just in anticipation. Just think about what's in your control, which was the performance mechanism piece of it. That's what I really, really focused on. So I felt that internal dialogue really gave me confidence to shelve the fear and to focus more on what I could do. So as often as I could, of course, I missed days. In my first trimester, there was like weeks 8, 9, 10, and 11, or maybe a little later than that. I was pretty near bedbound as I was this time. I'm currently now going into week 16 on Tuesday. So I'm like kind of right on the fence of week 15 and 16. And this time, weeks like 8, 9, 10, and 11 were awful. Like I basically have so much nausea when I'm pregnant in that morning sickness first trimester phase where I could barely lift my head out of bed. Like it was awful. And so of course, for some of you who experience morning sickness through the whole pregnancy, exercise again might not be possible for you. And you're encouraged to do as much or as little as what you want to or what you can, right? So of course I did take days off, but what I did really focus my time on was that every single workout that I did would contribute to that performance. And so there was very little to nothing in my life that was gonna take me away from the exercise that I had planned. And I was committed to it because it was such a performance outcome for me. So what this really created for me, and maybe because I'm a performance athlete from my past as well, and I'm sure many of you can relate to this, is that I just knew, for every workout that you miss, you're gonna be worse off or less prepared. And I really didn't want that for myself. So it actually, ticking the workouts off of the list for me and off the calendar from what my plan was I felt excited about it. So even when I didn't really feel like working out, I would think about the accomplishment piece and the tracking side of it, and that would bring me back. And ultimately I really enjoyed it. And so, you want to enjoy the exercise as you're going through it, right? I'm certainly not sitting here advocating that anyone should torture themselves every day. But anyway, that was really the first thing for me, was mentally treating labor like a performance of some sort, like a big endurance performance. So the second thing and the second reason why I feel that exercise really helped me was, of course, daily energy and mood. So my energy was like through the roof after the first trimester and even into the third trimester. So for us personally, a little bit about our story. If you're newer to following me, you might not have known this, but my fiance and I were building a house the entirety of my pregnancy pretty well. I found out I was 8 weeks pregnant already in April, and we broke ground on building our house in July. So until November, when we moved in, 6 days before our daughter was born, there was a lot of things that really could have made me feel really, really tired because we chose to build our house by ourselves with contractors and do a lot of the work ourselves. There was so many things that could have completely, just the sheer thought of the to-do list, could have been really stressful. And so I found that exercising and getting a little bit in every day, even if it was only, 20 or 30 minutes, my mood from the serotonin and the dopamine of the movement greatly helped me to have a clear mind in the pregnancy fog. And I just was generally, overall, I found I had a really happy pregnancy. Luckily, I didn't have complications, and so it was a pretty smooth pregnancy. And I do attribute a lot of that to the exercise piece, because as you know, your mindset is obviously a huge part of it, and that physicality is a huge part of it. So I really felt like, because I exercised so consistently, not only was I in a good mood, but I just generally, it really, really helped me to have a lot of energy. So as an example, specifically in this pregnancy, what I'm noticing, like, it's kind of hard looking back to the day-to-day energy levels in my first pregnancy, but in this pregnancy, I found as I was getting out of the morning sickness, on the days that I missed my workout, I've obviously missed more workouts this time around, having a child already, whereas when I was pregnant the first time, I was just taking care of myself, and so I didn't have a child running around. So this time I've definitely missed more workouts than I did in the first pregnancy, so I want to kind of catch up on that. My fiance is about to take paternity leave for a little stretch of time here, so that will really help me manage my time a little better. But what I want to say is that I noticed a huge difference in like weeks 13, 14, 15, that on the days that I would exercise in the morning or midday, I would have so much energy by like 6:30, 7:30, 8 at night. Whereas if I didn't exercise that day, I was like ready for bed by like 6 p.m. I was laying in bed just exhausted. So I have so many days experienced the energy that exercise and that little 20 to 30 minute workout at some point in the day, anytime, even if it's bursts of like 10 minutes at a time, it just contributes so significant to the overall energy. And so that made a huge difference in terms of what I could accomplish and what I was able to do and just how I felt through the day. So that's the second piece. And then the third piece is really the labor specifically itself. So I did just want to spend a couple minutes talking about my specific labor story, which could be a whole video in and of itself, obviously. But for me, when I went into labor, I felt very physically strong. And primarily, I think mentally, the connection to not only to just feeling physically good, but I really was able to maintain my weight. So I gained 35 pounds in my first pregnancy, which I guess the normal range they say is 25 to 35. So if you don't gain 25, you're under gaining. If you gain more than 35, you're over gaining, is their general numbers that they give you. So I, of course, was like, I'm not gaining more than 35 pounds, being the competitive person that I am. So I really was able to just maintain my weight. There were days, of course, I didn't really struggle too much with cravings. Like, there was definitely a few days, but it wasn't like a consistent daily thing where I just wanted to eat everything all the time, as I had heard from some people's experiences. I didn't have that. But I definitely did make conscious choices, and it was a little bit easier for me to avoid overeating because I was doing so much exercise and so much work. So it's like those things go so closely together that I was like, if I'm gonna do this much exercise and this much work, why would I just overeat and then put on a bunch of weight and like take away the progress of it, which weight maintenance and the physical strength to deliver the child kind of go hand in hand together, right? So I kind of coupled those things together. So I do definitely attribute how much I strategically moved and how much I exercised or worked out to the weight gain, and then also just my physical strength during labor. So I did feel like I was physically prepared to labor her. Like, I was like, let's go. Like, when my water broke, I was like, okay, I've been prepping for this for like hundreds of days. Like, I am ready to go. Like, let's go. I don't know what it is, like 260 something days when you're pregnant. I'm sorry, I'm not good with numbers, but I'm sure that, if you calculate it, it's something to that effect. And so it's a lot of days of consistently just preparing for this event. So I was prepared, and I feel like it's because I spent so much mental energy and time while exercising to prepare for it. So that was a really positive thing. The doctors were surprised I was able to push Holly out because she had turned into a sunny side up position, which I'm not going to speak too much on because honestly, if I go into detail about it, I still have so many questions about what that means exactly. And circa COVID, I didn't have a lot of contact with the doctor after to really have her explain that. Like, I kind of had one conversation with her I think it was maybe like 3 or 4 weeks postpartum. And she just noted that the doctors were very surprised that I had the strength to push her out in the position that she was in. So again, I don't really fully understand that. I'm going to talk to my physician or my OB again, because I do have more questions about that. But generally speaking, she was impressed with my strength, is what she said. The doctors were impressed with your strength. And I was like, okay, good, thank you. This is nice, right? It kind of gave me that sort of, I don't know, pat on the back maybe that I was looking for all the work that I had done. It's just a nice reassuring thing that someone noticed that you were strong. But at the same time, I do realize that they probably tell that to everybody just because they want you to be empowered and feel amazing. So I don't actually know if that's true, but I just believed that it was. I didn't have any pain medication. Other than when we first got there, I was in triage. So my water broke, and literally an hour and a half later, I was 9 centimeters dilated already. So the intensity of that time was so crazy. So before we went to check into, they've said, are you ready to go have a baby? And I was like, oh my God, like, I guess, let's go. Like, yes, mentally I was ready, but it's like, it's such an overwhelming physical experience that I had some option of pain medication. I don't remember what it was. And I didn't have anything after that. So my total labor from water breaking to her delivery was 7 hours. So I had something at that first hour and a half. So by the time I was actually pushing her out in those last, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1 hours, like I could feel everything, which I think actually for me, I look back and say, I'm glad I had the strength to do it. I did it. So I'm glad that I had access to all of those tissues to push to the level that I did. So I was definitely connected with the work that I did in my workouts, where I was able to grip the bed and access my strength from my arms to the extremities of how that connected to my core. And I was able to squeeze my pelvic floor. And they tell you when you're in labor, you're thinking about taking a poop. That's what they cue. That's the biggest cue. So while I was training, I was like thinking about being really good at shitting, which sounds disgusting, but that's the reality of what you do. And so even though I was so incredibly exhausted towards the end of it, because it was such an intense 7 hours, even at the very end, I had the confidence that I could access my strength. Like mentally, because I had trained for this performance, I just kept thinking, you trained for this, you're ready, you can do it. Rather than having you can imagine after, running a huge race or something, and you're in like hour 7, like how exhausted you are physically at that point, that it can be easy, I'm sure, at that stage just to be like, I can't do it. Like I just can't do it. So if I wasn't able to push her out in the position that she was in, I would have had to have a C-section. And so when I look back, not that having a C-section is, personal choice for everybody, but for me personally, I had watched my sister go through that, and when she compared the two, she had a VBAC for her third because she did not want to have another C-section. But I have girlfriends that I've spoken to that had C-sections and they recovered fine, and they were fine with that choice. But for me personally, based on what my sister shared with me, I definitely did not want that. And so I was really, really happy that I felt like I had the strength, endurance to get her out in the moments where it mattered before they were going to need to do a C-section. So I really feel like the mental and the physical connection, along with the performance goal and the exercise itself, not only helped me be less scared, but it helped me feel confident right up until like the last moment when I will never forget the sensation of feeling her physically fall out of my body. I had a level 2 episiotomy, so I had some help. They did have to clip me a little bit and create more space, but I got her out. I didn't have to have that C-section that I personally didn't want to experience. So that's about it. That's all I have. So that's all I wanted to share and talk about today. So if you've listened to this whole story, thank you so much for listening to it. It's something that's really been on my heart for a year that I just wanted to share. And I really, really want to encourage women to do as much as they possibly feel they can in pregnancy from an exercise perspective to really assist to prep themselves for this massive event in their lives. And I'm really excited for future programming to help women as well, and just to share exactly what it is that I did that gave me so much confidence. So again, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic day, and I love you.